Hey guys, good evening. 8:30 p.m. New York time, Tuesday, June 14th. And just wanted to make a quick video here regarding the biggest event of the week in the news world tomorrow, in the financial news world, which is the FOMC. So, beginning at 2 p.m. New York time, we have FOMC projections, which is their inflation and economic report for the next 2 years. And it's usually like a scatter report, a graph where the individual members will kind of rate where they see things over the next couple of years. Then we have the statement that comes out. That is a statement based on what they see currently and in the short term, and their rationale behind the funds rate decision. So all those three things all come out at the same time. Now they're not expected to change rates and leave it where they are, at least for this month. And based on the negative news on the non-farm payrolls last week, I would suspect they probably will stand pat this month. And they will indeed stay at the 0.5%. And then followed up at 2:30 by the press conference. So what does all that mean? Well, it's probably going to be volatile. But let's just take a quick look at some of the charts, and let's see. So I'm going to go over to U.S. Swiss first. Obviously, the U.S. Swiss is the inversely correlated to the euro dollar. So whatever the euro does, the U.S. Swiss usually does exactly the opposite. They're pretty much the inverse of each other. So here we are. Let's see. So this is the 4-hour chart. And to me, this looks like right now we're in a sideways correction, very typical of wave 4, and that we will, this pair probably will go down. Now, a lot of this is going to depend on timing. We're obviously at this point, we're many hours away from the announcement. So it'll be interesting to see in the early London and early New York session tomorrow what these pairs do. Now I would guess we do also have coming out at 8:30 tomorrow, we do have US PPI coming out. Now I personally think, although this is a red event, I personally think because of the FOMC numbers coming out later that this is probably going to have little impact. The market's going to basically be holding their breath waiting for FOMC, so I don't think this is going to have a big impact. But if it does come out negative, we could see this drift down a little bit. And again, we'll see what happens during the early London session if this downtrend continues. I certainly would have to see a downtrending market in order to be confident of where I think this is going tomorrow. So, but I mean, from current levels down to, even if it just gets to this low, I mean, that's not bad. There's only 65 pips. The U.S. Swiss is not a pip-rich heavy pair. So even though this is a 4-hour chart, this is only about 65 pips to the downside here. So we could see that. And I'll tell you a little bit more theory in a minute here. On the U.S. yen, this is again the 4-hour chart. And although I don't really see a wave 2 in here, it's kind of distorted. This pattern right here looks to me like what they call an ending diagonal. And it usually is the last move in an impulsive series. So, if it's a 5-wave impulsive move, that this would be wave 5, and when this pattern plays out, there's a very sharp reversal in the other direction. It also could be in the wave C position of a correction. So if this really is a ending diagonal, then again I could see this this pair again drifting lower into London and early New York tomorrow, especially negative PPI number, etc., and continue to see this lower. And then if the news turns out to be positive, you'll see this rapidly shoot to the upside. U.S. Canadian. Now this one is gives me a little bit more pause on what's going on, because if you go down to a lower time frame here, I'm just trying to find what looks the best. So here we are again on the 6 hour. Well, let's go out a little bit here. We had this big downtrend, and then we had this move up. And so you could potentially see this is the end of the correction. Then we had wave 1, wave 2, wave 3, wave 4, and then we get down for 5. Now this is a daily chart. This is about 200 pips from here to here. From this where it is right now back to this low is about 200 pips, and that's about the same length as wave 1. So if this is a wave 4, there's no way it's going to go down 200 pips between the open of the New York or London session. I just don't see it. I mean, it would probably take at least 2 to 3 days for it to go that far. So this one gives me a little bit more pause in terms of whether it's primed to go up or not, if this indeed is a wave 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, on the other side of it, this could be a reversal, because I mean, proportionally, this does not look anything like this. So, so to me, this doesn't look proportional, which means that maybe this was a reversal point right here, and in which case, you know, we could have a trend in place already. Let me see. Trying to find. Well, let's go back to the weekly chart. So if we go out to the weekly chart, that makes maybe the case for that. That here we had this just ridiculous move to the upside over a very long period of time, several years, and then we've gone down since late last year, and we've sold off here. And you know, I guess the question you have to ask, was this the bottom right here of this correction? And now maybe we went up for 1, 2, and then up for, and then we will continue upwards from here. So if we mark this spot right here, and let's see, we go down to a lower time frame. So you know, so here was that low right here. This is the 6-hour time frame. Sorry, I can't get this to move over. Okay. So this is the 6-hour time frame. So I guess you have to ask whether, again, whether this was a completed trend in process. That this whole thing was an uptrend, and now this is correcting down, and then we're going to reverse and go back up. So I don't know. It's a bit of a stretch. I don't really like the looks of this. This looks more like a corrective move, this whole thing, rather than an impulsive move. But I suppose you could make an argument for to find 5 waves in here somewhere, but I don't really see it. So in the CCI on this time frame, at least on the 6-hour, suggests that this will go back down. So this is the one that gives me pause, is the U.S. Canadian. So let's go to the euro now. Man, I don't know why my mouse is not cooperating. Okay, so here's the U.S. The euro dollar, and you know, with this one, you know, I can definitely. This is the weekly chart. You know, we obviously were selling off for a substantial amount of time, and you know, this is potentially an ABC pattern, ABC, and then we'll break to the downside, or you know, this could be the end of this correction, and then we go back to the upside. Now, I think this, to me, this looks more like an ABC pattern. So again, we're on the weekly chart, long time frame, but ABC. Okay, so if this is an ABC, then you know, this pattern will finish out, and then we'll have a substantial move. You know, this will finish out, and then you know, the market will go down. Okay, so we'll finish out somewhere here, and then you know, we'll continue down. So that one seems to be a bit more in line. Aussie dollar, this is really secondary to me, but you know, here we are on the daily chart. We had this move down. This was definitely an impulsive move down, pretty much straight, and then you know, this is potential correction, and then perhaps we're going to chop around here. Maybe this will correct up a little bit during the day tomorrow. Maybe again negative PPI number. You see this move up a little bit on maybe some negative news or Aussie strength, and then the news comes out and we see this continue to the downside. And I'm not going to look at the Kiwi dollar. The Kiwi has GDT numbers, the global dairy trade numbers that come out, and that will be out tomorrow morning during the New York session, and that is pretty much enough for that pair. So I'm really not even looking at the Kiwi. And again, so one last pair to look at, is the cable, the pound dollar. And again, this to me looks like it's potentially ending a trend here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this one also gives me pause then, because if the news is negative if the news is positive for the dollar, then this pair should sell off. And to me, this looks like it's already nearing the end of a trend. But it is possible that, again, we do have now the other thing to remember with the cable though is tomorrow morning early in the New York session, in the London session, we have average earnings index and the claimant count for the British pound. So, boy, I don't know what is going on with my mouse here. Okay. So here we are, 4:30 tomorrow morning, New York time. Average earnings, claimant count. They're expecting a worse showing in the average earnings, and they're expecting a slightly better showing in the claimant count change, and they're expecting unemployment rate to not change. So that potentially, if that news beats expectations, we could see a rally in the pound dollar, and then perhaps the New York session it'll turn reverse. So the bottom line is there's nothing really clear now. So what I wanted to say about that is that may not be unusual. This can be a very volatile announcement. There's going to be a lot of expectations on this. So a theory that I might have is that the news will come out, and initially the first thing you're going to see is the actual interest rate, whether they're going to change the federal funds rate. So this right here will be the first thing that you see, all right, the Fed funds rate, and they're not expected to change it. So there's been a lot of expectations that they were going to raise rates. So if they don't raise them, which they're not expected to, that I think you may see an initial push down on the pairs, on the dollar, okay, and see the the U.S. CAD and U.S. Swiss, all those go down a little bit. And then really I think what you're going to have to watch for, of course, is everything else. The statement comes out concurrently, the economic projections come out concurrently, and then a half hour later Janet Yellen will hold her press conference. And so these are the things that are going to really determine, I think, the direction of the dollar, not so much the actual funds rate, unless they surprise and actually cut rates. Raise rates. And if they do raise rates, then that definitely is going to rally the dollar, without a doubt. But assuming they don't, then there'll be a little bit of disappointment initially on that, and you'll probably see the dollar sell off for a short time. And then you'll have to wait and see on this. Now, if this matches up to what some of the patterns are suggestion, then I think what you'll find is that as you listen to Janet Yellen, and especially when you read these statements that come out and the projections, that they will strike a more bullish tone in the longer term. That they'll acknowledge that there's still some weakness. They'll acknowledge the bad numbers in the NFP last week, but that overall they're still on track to normalize rates or whatever verbiage they use, and that their inflation target is still looking pretty good. And so if that's the case, then the market's going to take that as a positive, and then you'll quickly see a reversal back to the upside. Okay, so but it's not clear. So because, like I said, I've got some concerns with the cable and with the U.S. Canadian in particular. Okay, those are the two pairs where I'm not really convinced based on what the patterns look like right now. But we'll have to see. We might, again, with the pound dollar, we could see positive news on the British pound tomorrow, and we could see this correct back to the upside. We get a short-term rally. That's very early in the morning. That's coming out 10 hours before the FOMC comes out. So you could easily see a substantial rally over that time, and then the news comes out positive for the dollar, and this turns around and reverses back to the downside. In the U.S. Canadian, the Canadian news could come out positive tomorrow morning because you've got manufacturing sales on the Canadian dollar. That could send this lower. Maybe the PPI number comes out lower, puts pressure on the U.S. Canadian to the downside, and then you see it pop back up. But again, this is a 200 pip drop, and I just don't see that happening in the matter of a few hours on the U.S. Canadian. So I'm going to be, like I said, I'm not going to be able to watch these live as they happen. So tomorrow morning, after the pound dollar news comes out, and probably early tomorrow morning, prior to the New York session opening, I'm going to take another look, and I'm going to decide whether I want to put a couple of pending orders in, and I'm just going to see what happens, and or I might not do anything because it's not exactly clear. So I'm going to see, and it's one of those times where, hey, maybe you don't trade it because it's not clear and there's conflict in the pairs. Maybe you don't trade it and you just let it go and see what happens. And if the market moves aggressively, you grin and bear it and just say, hey, I missed that one. But it doesn't mean you have to trade it because it's going to be volatile either way. But again, my initial gut says that we'll see a little weakness initially, but then we'll see positive strength afterwards, and that's the way the patterns are looking now. So I hope that helps, and I don't know what you guys are thinking. For those of you that don't trade the real short time frames, what you think. But any questions or comments, let me know. Comment on YouTube or in the Skype rooms for those that are in the Skype rooms. And good luck trading. Make your own decisions. I'm not suggesting any trades. I'm telling you what it looks like to me and what I might do, but of course it's completely up to you. And make your own decisions based on your own analysis and your own risk profile. So that's it, guys. Have a great night. We'll talk to you all soon.